Super Mario Level Up. This is a simple game that you can play with your adult friends, you can play with families, children, probably families and children are the main target here, and it's about, well, guess what? Everybody's favorite plumber and his brother. When I see this kind of game, I'm always a little bit conflicted because on one hand, of course, I like Super Mario. I like the franchise. I like the characters. They're just ridiculous, and the very idea of this Italian plumber that jumps over anthropomorphic mushrooms, that right there is like psychedelic stuff. On the other hand, when I see stuff like board games based on Super Mario, I never know if it's actually an enjoyable game or whatever the publisher put together a game without taking much care of what was going on, just came up with a couple of random mechanics and they slapped some Super Mario images on top of it. So I don't know, I was a little bit conflicted, but I wanted to give it a try. Super Mario Level Up is basically a race game in which you don't control a specific character, but you basically bet on various characters as they are racing on this board to try to reach the castle, and at the end of the round you score based on the positions of the characters that you're betting on the board. Interesting idea right there. Also the board very attractive, but again, is it just gonna be gimmicky? One last thing to know is a game for 3 to 6 players. That was a little bit of a minus for me, meaning that the minimum number is 3, because they're just many of these simple games for children that I can play with my daughter Amelia, who is 7. Here, well, we need to look for a third partner. My daughter Luisa does not always like to play the same games that Amelia like play, but for example, I brought it at a dinner with some friends that also had children, so after dinner we played it all together as one big, large group. And so there is that. The minimum number of players is 3, and as you will see, that is actually very important. I don't know that you could play a variant with 2 players only. Without further ado, let me show you how Super Mario Level Up works. The board of the game is 3-dimensional, as you can see. You had to build it each time. It's not a big deal. And the board could have been flat, strictly speaking, but what the heck. There's a game for families and children just love the way the board looks. The board is divided in steps that are numbered from 0 to 5 and then one number 10. On these steps you will place these iconic characters from the Super Mario franchise, and you will try to move them up as high as possible, because the higher they go, the more points they score for you. The game is played in 3 rounds. At the beginning of each round, you receive a lineup card, such as this one, that indicates the characters that you're quote-unquote bidding on, the characters that you will be able to score at the end of this round. At the end of the round, you will score the number indicated on the step where the character is. For example, this is the end of the round. This player will score 5 points for Luigi because Luigi is in 5, and this character too. This other player also will score 4 points for Wario, but 0 points for Magikoopa. And this is how it works. So you want your characters to be as high as possible. Now, at the beginning of each round, again, everybody gets a lineup card, and then you do setup. All of the characters are moved out from there, and then players alternate choosing one of the characters and putting it anywhere between level 1 and 4. This is important because if I put Bowser all the way up here, now maybe the other players know that Bowser is in my lineup. Players that don't have Bowser are gonna keep that in mind because they don't want me to get Bowser too high in there, up there, and score a lot of points. Other players that have Bowser may think, well, maybe I can work with that player. Unless I'm bluffing, I don't have Bowser, and we'll see what happens. So players alternate until they all have placed an equal number of characters. And it may entirely be to take a character that you don't have and you put it somewhere low. You don't have to put them as high as you possibly can. And at the end, some characters will be unassigned and you place them there at the bottom. Then there are these tiles here these blocks, you place them between level 1 and 5. You place them until each level has a total of 4 tiles and or characters. So level 5 starts with no characters, so we'll have 4 tiles. So we add a tile here because we have 3 characters. We add 2 here, 1 here, and 2 here. Now we are good to go. Actually, there's one more thing that we need to do. We need to, I need to tell you that each player also receives a set of 2 cards, a no card and a yes card. The back is the same, they are vote cards. What are those? We'll see. When it is your turn, there's simply one thing that you do. It's as simple as that. You choose one of the characters here and you move it up 1 level. There can only be up to 4 characters in a level, so if 4 are already there, you cannot add any more. For example, it's my turn. I simply move Donkey Kong from here to here. If you move to a level that still has a tile, then you take it and you look at it, and you may get different types of advantages, different types of things that may happen. Some may actually let you draw a power-up card. That again will give you different types of benefits. So just a lot of different things that may happen. Some extra effects. Getting those blocks is usually good, as it very well should. Like anybody who play a Mario game knows. So, but basically this is the main concept. During your turn, you move a character up. Again, up to 4. So right now, Luigi wouldn't be able to get there. But maybe next player gets there and takes that tile. And this other player moves there. And this other player moves Wario. And so on and so forth. Players will start playing tiles, performing the effect. Now, you continue like this until a character reaches the top of the castle, and that character is now trying to become the king of the castle. When that happens, when a character gets up there, all players look at their yes and no card, and they choose one secretly, and they place it face down in the middle of the table. Once everybody has made their selection, the cards are flipped face up. If there is even just one no, the character does not become the king of the castle, and it is eliminated. Now the character will be worth 0 points in this round. If they are all yes, say, yeah, I really want Bowser to be the king of the castle. If the cards are all yes, then the character becomes the king of the castle. The round is over, and we score our line of cards using the present position of the characters. Luigi would be 3, Bowser would be 10, and so on and so forth. Each player writes on a piece of paper what is their value of all the characters. And then you repeat, and you repeat that 3 times. Now, tricky thing, as I said, if they are all yes, then the round is over because you had the king. If they are no, the character is eliminated and the game continues, but the players only get the yes cards back in their hand. The no cards are discarded. So it may be that after an election or 2, there are no cards left. So whoever gets this first, becomes the king. There's also this idea, of course, that I don't really want Bowser to get there, to be the king, but I don't want to waste my no, because I've seen that happen that almost everybody plays their no the first round, the first election, and then there's only 1 or 2 players that are left with no's, and they have great power. So you're like, I don't want Bowser to be the king, but I would prefer not to waste my no, so I'm hoping that someone else is playing a no, but of course I'm taking a risk if I'm playing a yes, hoping that it'll be that somebody will vote no. And that is why it's so important during the game to bluff, to try to read what the other opponents have and try to get a sense of what they do. When you have a king, again, you score the position of all the characters, then you remove everything from here, and you give the no cards back to players, assign a new lineup card. Basically continue like this for 3 rounds, and at that point you tally the total, that is all the points that players score during the 3 rounds, and the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. Initially, I wanted to say in my conclusions that this game can be as light or as hardcore as you want it to be. And that maybe is a little bit excessive. But I would say this game can be as light or not as light as you want it to be. That is, depending on how you approach it and the people you play with and the number of players, the game may have more complexity than at first sight, may have a little more depth. It doesn't become the deepest game out there, but that's okay. There are a lot of games that are not the deepest game out there. Technically, all games but one are not the deepest game out there. And yes, they're still fun. For a family game, a game that you can play with children that are, 6 or 7 or so, this is a fun one. This is a fun one. Again, not very deep, but under certain circumstances, there's still a couple of interesting things. There's the bluffing element, of course, that, however, really comes across only lower numbers of players. When you have 6 players, it's going to be very hard to keep track of what everybody moved and why maybe they moved them. You can't really do all of the reading of maybe they're bluffing this, maybe that's the character that they really want, or they are moving something that they don't want, so that I bump out the character that they don't need anyway. You can't really do that for other 5 players. Maybe you're doing it and you forget what you should do for yourself. So with 3-4 players, that becomes much more possible. Also, at lower numbers of players, a lower count of players, you have a little more flexibility, a little more strategy, more decisions to make. When you have a lot of players, by the time the game comes back to you, well, maybe the board has changed a lot. The plan that you wanted to implement has been implemented by somebody else. And so you feel like you have a more limited control. What you do have control over, however, is the voting system. And that is very nice, because even if you don't get to do much when it is your turn to do a lot of leveling things up, then you're still making that interesting decision. You still have that dilemma, which basically is well, if you want to vote yes, that is fine. Just vote yes, what the heck. But if you would like a certain character to be bumped out of the game, then the dilemma is, should I do it or should I hope that somebody else does it? But then if no one does it, then the character wins. And what is the situation right now on the board? If the game either round and then now, which I don't want it to end, but the worst case scenario, would that be terrible for me? Would that be okay? So there are interesting assessments that you're making there, even if you're not necessarily moving your characters very much on the board. There's still a little bit of puzzle here that you have to take into account. Again, with a lot of players, it feels almost like a bit like gambling. Who knows why the player did that? With fewer players, you have a little more strategy. And again, also depending on how serious the other players are, you can get into that meta game. Well, usually I notice that that player always plays a certain character at the bottom, and that's not a character they do want, or they do that because they're bluffing, that's the character that they want, and they expect me, therefore, to move their character just to annoy the heck out of them. So that meta game, again, doesn't work the same way with all counts of players, nor with all players of all ages. Younger players are just less proficient at bluffing. But this is precisely because it's a game that you can play with young children, and it's just cute to move these little characters. It's entertaining for them, it's entertaining for you. The franchise is fun. People start talking like Super Mario. I don't know why every time we play a game with this topic, it also turns out that there is a parallel game which is Mario impersonation. That's just a thing that happens. So you can have this very casual gameplay, or you can have a little more complexity. I mean, the game is the same, but people can put more thinking into it. One minor thing, maybe, setting up the game sometimes can take a little while as you're building that thing. Children are running around because they're excited, they want to play it. That's just a very minor thing. But in general, Super Mario Level Up, it's not the deepest game out there, but then only one game is the deepest game out there. But it's fun. It's pretty entertaining for a family game, for a game, again, that when you see such a franchise, the suspicion is, oh, they pasted this on the theme on Candyland or something equally awful. Not at all. This is a little design, but it's a smart design. It's an entertaining design with a level of decisions that feels rewarding. Even when played casually, there is a level of entertainment, of enjoyment, a sense that what you do matters to an extent. And so it feels like playing the game is rewarding. There is an element of luck, or I should say pseudo-luck, that is when 5 other players are moving things around. It's not really luck because they decide what to want to move, but for all intent and purposes it's something that escapes your control, so it may as well be luck. So the control is limited, and sometimes you feel like you're just going on autopilot, you're in for the ride, but it is a ride that is pleasant, that is entertaining. For a family game, Super Mario Level Up is a pretty good one.